Right now at the state, we find that both sides of the political aisle really want to help us fight trafficking. But I think at some point it's going to become increasingly tough when we're going to need funds to also fight trafficking.
That's another. I know you all attended Congressman Poe's, and you all spoke there last August, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's working on legislation. And he said it's really not a bipartisan thing because no one's going to stand up and say we need more trafficking. That's the way we're going to solve the problems of this country, are they?
Right. No one's going to do that. And I'll tell you, one of the interesting things is that when Texas was finding that we were having trouble with funds at the state level and we cut many areas, Senator John Whitmire said, we aren't going to enhance any penalties. We're not going to send more people to jail because that's expensive, except in the area of trafficking. And it was within trafficking that he said, there, we can really have some new penalties for traffickers. So people understand that this is a unique issue that stands different than many other things.
And when we talk sex trafficking, are we talking in, you go down Westheimer, there's several gentlemen clubs. Are we talking about in there, or they're behind the scenes? What are we talking about when you say
all of that? I think in the city of Houston, in our county, there are over 300 sexually oriented businesses where we suspect a lot of trafficking is happening. We know trafficking is happening. Some of them we suspect, and most of them, that it's happening. And so this gets back to demand, Dan. Why is it that we have so many sexually oriented businesses? Men in Harris County are asking for this. These wouldn't exist if men weren't asking. It's very easy. It's very easy to get to go on the internet and have these girls ordered up. And I think at some point we're going to have to change the culture. Maria's going into the schools talking about this. That's part of changing the culture. But parents are going to have to sit down with their boys and they're going to have to say, listen, going to these clubs is not right. Buying sex is not right. We're not there yet, and we need to be there. They need to be scared. They need to be scared of the sheriff, but it also needs to be, they need to be ashamed of themselves for doing some of the things that are happening.
And I want to ask you one more question, Dr. Sanborn. I know the city of Houston, I think it was in December of last year, they gave kind of a deal for the $1 million deal with the sex club owners, and I know you were quoted as being against it. Tell us about that a little bit.
The 16 largest sex clubs in our city, strip clubs in our city, had a deal with the city where they would give them $1 million to the city to fight trafficking. And in exchange, the lawsuit would be dropped against them. They would be able to do lap dances again. All sorts of rules were sort of put to the side. And yeah, we were against that because we felt like it was a deal with the wrong people. But we're in a time when we have very limited resources. And what the mayor was trying to do was basically say, is there any way for us to get extra funding? And that $1 million would go towards fighting these trafficking organizations. So I understand that. I don't agree with it, but the mayor's my friend, and so I understand what she's saying. But I think we can't have any deals with these types of people. It's probably the wrong thing to do, but I certainly understand why we did it.
Okay. Sheriff, do you see it, besides the sex clubs, you see it in, could you go into a grocery store or a restaurant and see labor trafficking, or how often is that here?
Chances are I am walking into a restaurant, I am walking into some business, and I am seeing it. I just don't know it. And that is one of the biggest challenges, and that is what makes Maria's work so important, is that, we have to find better ways of identifying the labor victims of human trafficking, because it's there. There's no doubt. I remember years ago, in fact, patrolling this very neighborhood here, going back almost 20 years ago, and I get stopped by a gentleman whose face is halfway cratered in, and he was asking how to file a report in another county for a ranch landlord that had him work all week. And when the week was up and he went up for his pay, he got the butt end of a rifle. And so that's 20 years ago. That victim was obvious to find. But for other victims who are getting pennies on a dollar for wages that should be much more lucrative, and for working 16-hour days when they should only put in 8 to 10, those are circumstances that help define what the labor victim is going through. It's there. We know it's there. We're seeing it. We just don't know how to effectively identify it just yet.
Okay. And how well you hear about in government never communicates well, one hand doesn't know it. How well is law enforcement, say for example, Harris County Sheriff's Department with FBI, Houston Police, State Police, how well is the communication line?
Since 2007, the Sheriff's Office, or 4 maybe, we have been in partnership with the Houston FBI office and the Houston Police Department with a joint task force. That's worked very well. We've also been partners with ICE and other federal agencies. But the problem is bigger than just this particular community, and it's bigger than those agencies. And so we, theoretically, we should have a task force made up of the nearly 100 law enforcement agencies that exist in Harris County. It's a big issue, and it will help us keep the traffickers from being able to slip through the creases. And so we need to do better. We're doing good at sharing information, but there's so much more. The other challenge that we have is that when it comes down to working the investigations, one particular investigation that we worked years ago took about 4 years to effectively investigate and prosecute. The problem was that the traffickers, they know the rules better than we do. So they knew how to change their leases, their light bills, their phone bills, so that it would create a problem on law enforcement using wiretaps and other surveillance strategies, and it slows down our process. So we need to be better at that, and I think by bringing more collective law enforcement partners to the table, it's gonna help us in the long run.
The other thing related to this, Dan, is that when Maria and I hold a summit on human trafficking, people who show up are the lawyers for some of the sexually oriented businesses and the trafficking industry. They come to these summits to find out what's going on. They don't allow the sheriff and Maria and I to go to their meetings. And so they understand exactly what we're doing because it's lucrative to them. They're making money, and they're trying to figure out how do they avoid us so they can continue to make money.
Okay, guys, I'm being told our time is up. Obviously, we can't discuss it fully in 30 minutes. We'd like to do a forum some other time with you all, and you're certainly welcome to talk to us anytime. I'd like to thank producer Julie and Annie McKenzie for making this all possible. And I'm Dan Summerby with Advocatecitizen.com.